It's interesting how people can underestimate the impact of their actions. My name is Ryan, and the best way to describe me is as someone who loves and is generally polite, always striving to give his wife everything she desires. It took me 2 marriages to realize that being reserved and giving your all to the person you love can lead to contempt and disrespect. I won't let that happen again. These entitled women believe they can do something secretly without their partners finding out, thinking that as long as they're not caught, everything's fine. They try to hide their guilt in various ways until they eventually get caught. Then they suddenly feel remorse and explain that they didn't want their spouse to find out and get hurt. Do they even hear themselves talking? What should we think when they claim they never intended for us to discover their actions? It's like they're admitting they did something behind our backs and are only sorry they got caught. That's quite an insult. I'm convinced these women can't grasp normal thinking. Sandy and I met after we both ended dysfunctional relationships. She had spent 3 years with her boyfriend, Billy, who left her for a younger, more attractive girl. Sandy was left heartbroken and with low self-esteem because the man she loved dumped her. She never really got over Billy, and that always bothered me to some extent. I'm Ryan, and I'm 6 years older than Sandy. I was married for 5 years to an incredibly attractive, seductive woman who made my world spin. I was deeply in love with her and expected to spend my life with my ex-wife, Charlotte. However, she had affairs behind my back during a time when I was completely infatuated with her. It took me a year to discover her infidelity, and it hurt me deeply. I left her and swore I'd never allow it to happen again. Afterward, I realized that trust would be an issue for me in any new relationship. Sandy and I were aware of each other's past baggage. I helped Sandy overcome her self-esteem issues as she worked hard to improve her body and appearance. She devoted her free time to shopping for new clothes, spending hours at the beauty salon, and playing tennis. With my support, she transformed into a confident, attractive woman. In return, Sandy, knowing my history, helped me overcome my confidence issues. She always reassured me that I was her one and only love and how fortunate she felt to have found me. Every day, she expressed her love for me and ensured all my desires were fulfilled. Our life was still vibrant, and we were at least 4 times a week. We continued to share kisses and cuddles on the couch, and our love for each other remained strong. We even began discussing the possibility of having children. We truly felt like soulmates. Life seemed great, or at least that's what I believed. A week after celebrating our 6th anniversary, my life took an unexpected turn. I spotted my wife wearing a dress I hadn't seen before, and she looked stunning, which was unusual for a typical late weekday morning. To clarify, I wasn't secretly watching my wife, but we have a home video surveillance system that I occasionally check when I'm feeling bored at work. I find solace in watching our dog Brandy, my little dachshund, especially after enduring my stressful job as a bond broker. However, on that particular morning, when I saw the live video feed, I grew curious. There she was, the love of my life, dressed in a very short, alluring red dress and extremely high heels. Her hair was perfectly done, and her makeup looked flawless. It had been years since I'd seen her look this attractive, and it made me feel uneasy and anxious. So I decided to call my wife and inquire about her plans. I dialed her number on my cell phone. "Hey babe, just sitting here thinking about you. How's your day going? Tennis today?" "Hey honey, I miss you. I don't have anything scheduled for today. No tennis because Kara hurt her ankle, so I've decided to take the day off." "Oh, that's unfortunate. I know how much you enjoy playing tennis. So what's on your agenda then?" "Well, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't made any specific plans. Perhaps I'll head to the gym. Would you be interested in meeting for lunch? I can swing by the house and pick you up." "That's very considerate, babe, but not today. I'm feeling a bit bloated and I'm not particularly hungry right now. I'll simply have a protein shake at the gym. I'll see you tonight. I love you, baby." 2 didn't say my usual, "I love you" when we parted ways, and I'm pretty sure she noticed because I always say it before ending our calls. She lied to me, and I need to figure out why she did that. Some things are difficult to handle. Even though I trusted Sandy after all these years, I had a GPS tracker in her car that I rarely used. Initially, I installed it for security purposes, but sadly, I was now using it to spy on my wife. Right after I hung up the phone, I left my office, went to my car, and activated her tracker. She was heading downtown, so I followed her in that direction. My office was close to downtown, and 15 minutes later, I caught up with her. When I saw her entering the parking garage, I parked on the street and waited by the entrance for her to come out. 5 minutes later, my lovely wife, wearing high heels and a dress, was heading towards Fellini's, an upscale restaurant. I stood there, my stomach in knots, hoping I wasn't being deceived by another woman. When I saw her waving to a man in front of the restaurant, I knew I was in trouble. I moved closer, trying to stay out of sight, and witnessed him greet her with a kiss. They exchanged a few words, and he took her hand as they entered the restaurant. I quickly crossed the street and peered through the window. As they stood in front of the hostess, their arms around each other, I noticed Sandy leaning affectionately on his shoulder. Tears welled up in my eyes, but soon, anger overcame me. I wiped my eyes, took out my phone, and started taking some pictures through the window. While I was snapping pictures, I saw him turn to Sandy and kiss her passionately. I captured some photos just as she responded with an equally passionate kiss. The pain in my heart and the anger in my head pushed me down a dark road. I couldn't decide what to do before the hostess showed them to their table. I felt my blood boil when I realized the man was Billy, her ex-boyfriend, the guy who had broken her heart and caused her so much pain. She knew how much I disliked him and that I'd made it clear she should never speak to him again. She clearly didn't respect my wishes. My anger got the better of me when I realized that in just the past hour she had lied to me, dressed provocatively to meet her ex, kissed him passionately, and was spending the whole day with him. That kind of disrespect and humiliation was unacceptable, and I couldn't put up with it any longer. The promise I'd made to myself after my last marriage prevented me from being patient and accepting such disrespect. It was over, and all that was left was to hear more lies and excuses from my soon-to-be ex-wife. Still seething with anger, I drove back to the office and finished the day at my desk, trying to understand how this could have happened again. After wallowing in self-pity for the next 5 hours, I headed home, already planning my next move. I wondered if Sandy would come clean about her day, or if she'd continued to deceive me, which would make my final decision easier. With great effort, I managed to control my anger and drove home to confront the end of my marriage. As I pulled into my driveway, tears welled up as I mourned the loss of the woman I once loved and respected. Sandy was setting the table for a delicious dinner, dressed nicely, and acting affectionate toward me. When I entered the kitchen, she gave me a warm kiss and told me how much she had missed me. It felt like typical behavior of a cheating spouse. I thought she was trying to alleviate her guilt and make amends by showing more affection than she had in the past 6 months. No matter how hard I tried to act normal, it was clear it wasn't working. When she looked at me and asked, "Honey, are you okay? Did anything happen?" I poured myself a generous glass of Mr. Daniels, attempted a smile, and tried to relax as I said, "I'm fine. It's just been a busy day. Let me freshen up for dinner and I'll be down in a bit." In the bedroom, I changed and sat on the bed, sipping my drink and allowing it to calm my nerves. After regaining composure, I went back down to the kitchen and found my beautiful wife in high spirits, with dinner laid out on the table. She seemed content with the day she'd spent with her boyfriend. We sat together, and I initiated a conversation. "This is a lovely dinner, Sandy, and you look stunning today. Thank you." "I love you, honey, and I love cooking for you," she replied with a satisfied smile. We sat in an uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. While eating, I noticed Sandy glancing at me, curious about what was bothering me. Did she feel guilty? Would she finally tell me the truth about her day? I was about to find out in the next few minutes. "So, tell me about your day and what you did," I asked, trying to keep my tone non-threatening. "Well, after you called, I went to the gym for a couple of hours, had a protein bar, and then returned home to prepare dinner for you. It was a pretty uneventful day," she said in response. Seeing my expression and the tears in my eyes, she quickly shifted her gaze down to her plate. In a hushed tone, I asked, "So, Sandy, how do you think we should handle this situation? Should we consult lawyers first, or would you like to try counseling? What are you referring to, dear?" "I'm talking about divorce, obviously," I replied. "Quit playing dumb. What are you talking about?" "I mean the end of our marriage. Divorce, separation, figuring out how to go through with it while still remaining friends." "I don't get it. Why do you want a divorce?" "Seriously? I'll give you a few minutes to ponder that question before I respond." Suddenly, she appeared anxious. Her hands fidgeted with her glass and she avoided making eye contact with me. Several minutes passed in silence. "Were you trailing me tonight?" No, I fibbed, although I knew it didn't really matter. But for some reason, I didn't want her to know. Why are you asking if I followed you? Is there something I should be aware of? I could tell she was still bewildered and didn't know what to say. Typical of cheaters, denying everything. As expected, she asserted that nothing was going on and that she didn't understand what was happening. Why are you bringing up divorce while wearing that sad expression? I stared into her eyes for a while, hoping she'd be honest with me. After a prolonged silence, I said, "Well, let me show you what's been bothering me, Sandy." I unlocked my phone and displayed a picture of her and Billy kissing when they met outside the restaurant. That photo could be interpreted as a friendly greeting. I didn't want to reveal the other pictures until I heard more of her explanations. Her jaw dropped, and tears welled up in her eyes. She began to offer excuses, of course. "Honey, I can explain. It was just a hello kiss. Nothing else occurred. How did you get this photo? So how's Billy these days? Let me explain how I got this picture, sweetheart. I was crossing the street exiting a software store when I thought I saw you walking hand in hand into a restaurant. I crossed the street and approached the window to see you with his arm around you. My initial thought was that it couldn't be you, but I was mistaken. It was you. My second thought was, why is she dressed so provocatively? She never dresses like that for me anymore. Then I realized you were with Billy, and everything became clear. I started taking some pictures just as you leaned in and kissed him. That's how I got this picture." In the next picture I presented to her, she had her arms around his neck, and her short dress was riding up, revealing her backside. "You looked incredibly attractive in that dress, and your hair and makeup were outstanding. Were you going to a modeling shoot or maybe starting a new job as— Can you explain why you dressed that way for him? I can't recall the last time you wore something so alluring for me." She covered her face with her hands and cried, while I continued to gaze at her, waiting for an explanation. When she stayed silent, I went on. "My new S22 phone has an incredible camera with zoom capabilities. Look, let me show you," I said, moving closer to her left arm, wrapped around Billy's neck. I zoomed in on her ring finger, which was now bare of wedding rings, and brought the image up to her face. "No wedding rings today? That's strange. I can't remember you ever taking them off during all the time we've been together. Today must have been a special day. Now do you see why I'm discussing divorce? You lied to me about your day this morning, removed your wedding rings, dressed provocatively to meet your old flame, and lied again about your day just now. You're sitting here lying to my face, telling me you went to the gym today and had nothing for lunch. You put on an outfit for your ex-lover and spent the day with him while I worked to improve our lives. You broke your promise to never see him again. You kissed and flirted with another man in public. You treated me like a fool and just lied repeatedly. I don't know if you slept with him tonight or anything, but honestly, it doesn't even matter. No matter what you say, in my mind, it'll be a lie. But your actions have shown me that you can't keep your promises, and you're willing to lie to cover things up. You tried your best to look appealing for your ex-lover, worked with him, and abandoned our marriage by removing your rings. Then you lied to me over and over. It seems to me that's a valid reason for divorce, and I think you know it." Sandy was deeply shaken. She hadn't truly considered the consequences until now. The way Ryan articulated it made her feel like she had been unfaithful, which had never crossed her mind before. Up until this moment, she had regarded it as harmless teasing and flirting, nothing serious. But for the first time since Billy had approached her, she realized that it had evolved into an emotional connection and could easily be seen as cheating on her husband, if not physically, at least emotionally. She continued to cry and realized that if the roles were reversed, she would react the same way. "What have I done?" she muttered to herself. Her heart ached, and she felt sick to her stomach due to the pain she had caused her husband. She had to get through to Ryan and save their marriage. "Ryan, you have to trust me. Nothing happened. We parted ways after dinner, but you have to believe me. Nothing happened. It was just lunch," she said, sobbing and searching for a way out. "I understand now how it looks, and if the situation were reversed, I'd feel exactly the way you do now. I'm so sorry. Can you please try to forgive my foolishness? It's more than just foolishness. Since you did this with your ex-lover, the one person you vowed to avoid, can you explain why you dressed like that for him without your wedding rings? Can you explain why you held hands and kissed him? Can you explain why you lied repeatedly to my face? Tell me, darling, does our marriage mean nothing to you? And yes, if the roles were reversed, I'm sure you'd feel very differently." Ryan, honey, we can't let our marriage crumble over something like this. Nothing really happened. He was in town, and he invited me to lunch. I know I shouldn't have gone, and I'm aware of your jealousy, but we had a long history together. I thought one lunch after all these years wouldn't be a big deal. I guess I dressed up to show him what he missed. When he left, I kind of wanted to tell him right to his face what he lost, and how happy I was without him. Remembering how he had left me back then still hurt, and I wanted a bit of payback. Yes, I kissed him, but it wasn't a romantic kiss. More like two friends meeting or parting ways. You have to believe me, I want nothing to do with him. Please, baby, let's work this out. I'll do whatever you want. Really, that doesn't mean anything. You'll do anything I ask. Hearing that she had a chance to save the marriage, she smiled, eager to hear what she needed to do, and said, Yes, of course. I'll do whatever you want me to do, baby. All right, Sandy. I'll give you one chance, and just one chance. I have one request. Let me see your cell phone. Why? She looked at me with a puzzled expression. Well, Sandy, if it doesn't mean anything, then show me your cell phone. I want to see if there are any text messages between you two and what you've been saying to each other. No, you don't need to see that, she said, her gaze falling to the floor. She understood that if I read those messages, it would cause me pain and reveal things she'd rather keep hidden. That's exactly what I had in mind. So let's revisit my initial question. How should we handle this? Tears welled up in her eyes as she pleaded for forgiveness, promising never to repeat her actions. It dredged up painful memories of my first marriage. I couldn't believe I was reliving that nightmare. This time, I wasn't going to accept all the lies and let things continue. Wait, please, just wait. Ryan, if I give you the phone, will you promise to give me another chance? You have to know that I love you and I've never cheated on you before. I might have gotten caught up in a foolish online relationship and yes, with my ex-lover, but I was acting foolishly, like a teenage girl. The flirting and compliments were flattering and it boosted my ego. I know how childish that sounds. If I hand you the phone, can you promise to give me another chance? I can't do that, Sandy. But I promise you, if you don't give me the phone, our relationship is over. My next step will be to call Mark Wilson, the attorney I've already spoken to, and have him prepare the divorce papers this week. Can we work on this? I want to be as transparent and open as you are. My issue is that I never want to hurt anyone and will avoid it if possible. Now I see that not being honest is actually worse. Well, honesty and transparency were the only things that could have salvaged this marriage. But you weren't forthright and candid until you had no other choice. The fact that you refused to let me read your text messages until you realized you had no alternative sealed your fate. Tears streamed down her face as she sat there, fully aware of how those messages exposed her dishonesty and lack of trust. She knew I wouldn't accept it, and eventually realized that her emotional relationship with another man was just as damaging as a physical affair. She vowed never to make such a mistake again. Sadly, our once happy marriage came to an end. We signed the divorce papers, and 3 months later, we were officially divorced. We sold the house, divided our assets, and parted as friends. No reconciliation, no vendettas or bitterness. All that remained were the smoldering ruins of a once happy marriage, destroyed by deceit, lies, and a loss of trust. I continued to date, but after being burned twice, marriage was not in my future. Sandy and Billy got together, and 2 months later, Sandy became pregnant. Billy abandoned Sandy as soon as he learned about the pregnancy, instructing her to handle it because he wasn't ready for children. The next day, Billy vanished, leaving Sandy holding the baby. According to her sister Debbie, Sandy was a mere shadow of her former self. Her self-esteem had once again been shattered. Sandy remained in a perpetual state of depression, especially when she lost her baby due to a violent fall down a long flight of stairs in her apartment. Her life had gone from paradise to sheer hell, all because of her vanity and selfishness. She simply couldn't forgive herself for ruining our once happy marriage and losing my love and respect. Trust, loyalty, and respect. You violate one, and you lose them all.